Welcome back to Mr. Jim's Adventures. Last time, Sebastian's journey took an unexpected turn when a fraudulent school and hidden enemies brought him to the attention of internal security. Today, Sebastian recovers from his ordeal and receives an opportunity that could change the course of his future. As he begins the long trip home, we take a closer look at a life within the fleet, the challenges facing the Jefferson Davis, and the difficult choices people make simply to survive. Meanwhile, old enemies continue to set their plans in motion, and Sebastian finally returns to the ship he calls home. Let's begin Chapter 5. Sebastian. Sebastian started feeling better almost as soon as the Horizont security officers rescued him. It was a bit embarrassing to realize he had been jammed into a janitor's closet. It was the heady odor of the disinfectants and cleaners that made him dizzy. Guys, I'm okay. You can stop fussing over me. He glares at the medic doing the fussing. The chief security officer, Marek Stefka, steps into view. I'm sorry about this, but internal security gave us strict instructions. We are to verify your condition and then turn you over to their agent. Their agent? Am I under arrest? Of course not. A familiar face steps forward. They just want to make sure you are safe. Captain Cash? Are you the IS agent? For now. As a traveler through the fleet, I see things and hear many more. I have worked with them in the past. In this case, I'm convenient. I don't get the chance to visit the Horizon often, so I had booked a room and planned on shopping for a couple of days. So I was still on board, and they knew I had transported you on more than one occasion. They figured someone you know would be better than a stranger after what had happened. Captain, I think that's the most I heard you say in one go the entire time I've known you. Sebastian smiles. Did you find any good deals before you were drafted? I found some awesome fudge. Then he casts off from the Horizont a few hours later. Though the two ships are considered neighbors, it still takes 2 days floating through space with too much time and way too much fudge before Cash turns his passenger over to the Sablehawk infirmary and the IS officer assigned to the ship. Despite his insistence that he is fine, the medic performs multiple tests. I'm sorry, boy, but the major said he wanted you thoroughly checked. Sebastian looks at the IS officer. He is not military trained, but he had seen officers, and the guard's uniform didn't strike him as an officer's. The medic noticed and gives a chuckle. No, no, not him. The major is much more intimidating. That young officer is just an ensign. He's here to keep Captain Parker away. I don't envy him. It's her ship, after all. Why are they having to be so thorough? Some of these tests I've never heard of before. Mine is not the question why. What? He means he just does what he's told. The new voice belongs to a man in an IS uniform. I am Major Sardinad. Should I salute you? Not yet. Civilians don't salute military, but that's what I wanted to discuss with you. Why? You were suckered into a fake school because you have a rare ability. Our records indicate you have an even rarer ability, one that internal security is highly interested in. Okay, so what's this ability? The one you demonstrated in high school, the one using Aether. That wasn't all that special. It's more special than you believe. Special enough that we want to recruit you. I'm not old enough. That's not quite true. You could join with the parents' approval. I've already had quite a pleasant discussion with your mother, and she is acceptable. The doc here already did a preliminary examination and finds you fit. What do you say? Agent 2. Mongrel, we need to accelerate the program. A nosy security officer stumbled onto the school. That's not my name. Agent 2 reaches his hand towards the kill switch. He doesn't have to take this kind of abuse. Halfway to the switch, his hand stops on its own accord. Even though the image on the screen is nothing but a silhouette, it seems to glare at him. Slowly, Agent 2 returns his hand to his lap. It doesn't bode well to anger the master. Agent 2 remembers his first job for the master about 3 years ago. He had contracted out to an anonymous employer who seemed to know things no one was supposed to. It was the more unpleasant aspects of his job history that the master was looking for. Yes, little man, I know what happened to the wise guy the bosses had watching you. I know why the bosses had you under observation. I even know which incinerator the evidence was put in. Did you know the particular incinerator chute was blocked off for maintenance? In horror, Agent 2 stared at the holograph. Fortunately for you, I arrived and removed the incriminating evidence before the crew found it. From that moment on, Agent 2 knew he was trapped. True, the master paid as well as he promised, but he had no choice but to follow orders. The evidence that could get him taking a long walk out a short airlock was in the master's hands. I think we understand each other. Now, to let it sink in the next room is Agent 1. He disappointed me once, which is one too many times. Before you get any ideas, nothing in that room will be traceable to me. However, if the mess is found, it could get some people poking their noses into stuff they ought not to. Your first assignment is to clean it up. The holographic projection flickered and then disappeared. Slowly, Agent 2 opened the door. Inside was a short section of hall that had been blocked on both ends. The bulkhead, normally painted a light gray, was covered in a dark red fluid that slowly pooled on the deck. The sickly metallic taste in the air left no doubt about the source of the fluid. There were no pieces larger than a fingernail, yet there was enough gore in the surface to account for a large person. The master clears his throat, bringing Agent 2 back to his current predicament. Using one's proper name is a sign of respect. Succeed in this project, and you just might get the respect you think you deserve. The master pauses, and Agent 2 can imagine the master stroking a beard as he does the calculations. Let's see, he was sent back to the Sable Hawk, since that was the previous stop before the school. We want him to be fully rested, and he needs time to travel. Give me 2 days, then start your operation. As always, the hologram flickers, then disappears. Agent 2 sincerely hopes the plan succeeds, for it is not the master who will pay for any failures. Sebastian. The ride from the Sable Hawk to the Jefferson Davis was quiet and uneventful, leaving Sable a lot of time to think, unfortunately. When he was away from the JD, it is easier to pretend life was different, that the reunited States ideal of equality was real. When he was on the ship on which he was born, the truth is overwhelmingly evident. The RUS and the fleet tried hard and are still trying to make their ideal true. There is a long way to go. While it is true that the barriers between origin, skin color, and religion are gone, there is, and evidently will always be, the haves and the have-nots. The only difference now from the old planetary days is how fairly distributed the inequality is spread. The haves cover the spectrum of race, origin, and religion, just as the have-nots. Technically, there are two types of currency. There are the standard ship credits and fleet credit. Everybody gets a certain amount of ship credit. Most of this comes in the form of the dole. The primary purpose of the fleet was to preserve as many humans as possible. Thus, the majority of people on board any vessel, excepting the military ships, are passengers. There really aren't enough jobs to go around. There's no way for most of the passengers to find means to support themselves. So supplies were laid out, renewable resources are parceled out as evenly as possible. Food for the number of passengers is supplied, with each passenger getting a little extra to get those items they want to splurge on. In many cases, it is these items that make the long, tedious journey bearable. Some entrepreneurial people choose to fill that void, gathering or creating various forms of entertainment. Others discover ways to transform the simple food of the dole into exquisite menus far surpassing the staples designed to keep a passenger alive. These enterprises were small when the fleet left Earth 26 years ago. Many now have franchises on multiple ships. This is where the fleet credits come in. The value of a credit can vary greatly from ship to ship. Fleet credits are the standard that the value is measured against. It is also how the fleet pays the Marines, internal security, the engineer corps, and for the services of many others, particularly the Order of the Heretic. Originally, the credits of each ship were equal in value. However, when there was a failed business or a major disaster, the value would start to fluctuate. However, the biggest fluctuation was due to the ship's undocumented populations. Each ship received supplies to feed their documented population. The larger the undocumented population, the thinner a ship would have to spread its allotted dole. The thinner it was spread, the less value it had. If the population was steady and grew as planned, then the dole was equally increased and the credit was steady. But some ships had a population problem that for various reasons they did not properly report. In the fleet, this is largely the result of the Earth's nations, religions, and other influencers. In a last minute effort to ensure that their kind was counted among the survivors of Earth, many of these influencers sent extra members of their specific interest to the ships that were already packed to capacity. In turn, the resources allocated to the ships became stretched thin, and continue to be so, for few want to admit how overcrowded they are or admit how they took part in breaking the rules. They accept their own impoverishment before they admit their guilt. Sable muses on how he is trapped in maintaining that lie. It has been ingrained in him since birth to never reveal to an outsider how bad things are, how overcrowded the ship really is. It is a matter of ship pride to keep their own counsel and not air out their dirty laundry in public, whatever that means. As they start docking procedures, Sabo notices Captain Cash keeps his weapon handy, just in case. The big passenger ships need the shuttles and transport vessels to make their regular runs, and it is rare for a shuttle to be harassed. But Cash knows it is prudent to be ready. Captain Cash? Yes. This is a dangerous spot for you to stop at. Why do you do it? You could change your route to avoid us. Mr. Snow, if I did that, who would have taken you to the Hawk and back? Who would have played the bus driver to give you a lift to school? Who would deliver the supplies in my cargo hold? Sebastian indicates a weapon. This is a risky stop. Most people don't talk about it to my face. But while at school, I overheard more than one conversation about how dangerous the Jefferson Davis is, and more than once caught sight of fear in the eyes of people when they found out where I was from. Is it worth making the trip? Captain Cash stops the docking process to turn and face his young passenger. Yeah, yeah, it is. You're right. This is a dangerous stop, and many captains had turned down the offer to include this one, despite the incentives offered. But when they offered it to me, I couldn't decline. You see, I believe in what the RUS tries to do, and I think the fleet has to make it work. For the most part, they have succeeded. It is only on vessels like this, and with the more fanatic elements, that we have a breakdown. I know the ship is officially home to 200,000 passengers. When the fleet was launched, the Earthers, in this case, I believe it was the Baptist Union of Florida and Georgia, pulled some shenanigans and put more people here. With the birth rates among the passengers, I personally believe the population to be half again as high as the official tally. Cass watches Sebastian as he makes this broad statement. Though the boy is conditioned not to say anything, his body language speaks volumes. The situation on board the Jefferson Davis is far worse than internal security is aware of. He'll have to inform IS when he gets a chance. Now, while I know it, and many people in the fleet believe it, barring some disaster, we can't do anything unless the Jefferson Davis's crews or passengers ask for help. As Sebastian begins to fidget, Cash continues. Don't worry, son. I'm not asking you to be the one to turn against your own ship. I'm just answering your question. The supplies on my hold, and the ones I bring every time I stop here, are what you do with ship. With 200,000 people on it, I know it's not enough, but it is what I can legally bring. Imagine how hard life would be if me, or someone like me, didn't make this delivery. Even though it isn't enough, getting a little is better than getting nothing. Cash turns back to the process of docking the ship and speaks over his shoulder. Kid, I can't, in good conscience, not make this delivery. Paper. Years ago, when he still believed the heretical sciences were actual sciences, he delved briefly into the belief system of these people, trying to understand how it all worked. Quickly he learned there is no explanation, at least nothing in print and nothing explicitly explained. These people claimed magic, and Aether and other fairy tales were how it all worked. As long as you followed the correct ritual, did the correct gestures, used the correct ingredients, then the magic would work. Paper, he says to himself, you were raised better than that. Science and people are the real powers in this universe. So somewhere under all this mumbo jumbo, there has to be an explanation. So he continued to study, looking for the nuggets of science these people have wrapped in religious and fanatical terms. In the long run, he didn't learn much, but he did discover two things. The engine that pulls the fleet through space apparently incorporates the majority of the sciences understood by the people of this planet. Learning how this actually worked, getting his hands dirty, so to speak, to watch something like it being built and studying each aspect is the fastest way to truly grasp their science, and it is well worth the grasping. The engine pulls the entire fleet through space at greater than the speed of light, yet appears to stay in normal space without wormholes, some dimensional pockets, or any science he has ever heard of. His boss would love to steal the technology, so he got Captain Patrick riled up, made her decide to leave the fleet. From there, a few nudges was all it took to keep her on target. He watched, but let her figure out how to get her own engine. It would be easier to steal an engine from her than from IS. Then there were the prophecies. Not only were these the proverbial straws that broke his belief in their sciences, but they gave him the idea for the game. Paper had been patient for 13 years. After a few untraceable calls, the arena is set and the pieces are strategically placed. Sebastian. Once beyond the public portions of the ship, the portions outsiders are allowed to see, Sebastian moves with a purpose. Long ago, he realized if you hesitate, if you show any sign of fear on the JD, you mark yourself as a target. In general, he knows where he's going. The hull and the permanent parts of the structure remain the same. He needs to go inward 3 levels and then counterspin for 400 some odd feet. In reality, things aren't that simple. The interior of the JD is a shifting living place of cardboard packing crates and ply-plast sheets that would rival any shantytown ever built on old Earth, full of twisting turns and dead ends. Then there are the human traps. Any turn, moving through any curtain, could put you in the middle of some gang's turf. These boundaries shift as often as the man-made terrain. Someone like Sebastian, who had been off to school for the last few months, has no chance to know the safe paths. Since the terrain is a mystery, Sebastian watches the people. Individuals might change, but groups and how they interact do not. He spots a group of kids ranging from 10 to 12 years in age who are headed inward. Checking his watch, he realizes these kids are just getting out of school. They are just the right age to still be students. Not everyone has the grades or the opportunity to go to high school. For most, school stops at 8th grade. It was decided that by that point a kid learned enough to get by on, and any further education would be learned as you advanced in a trade. In reality, there were not many tradesmen needed, and most grew up to live off the dole. But school kept the younger kids out of the gang's grasp and gave them a chance to decide if they wanted a trade, and gave the few who had the real talent to be discovered and shipped off ship for a broader education. Rations were tight enough the schools couldn't supply a meal. These kids would be headed down to the living areas to find a quick meal before adventuring out. They would, by necessity, know the safe routes through the maze. Picking up their trail, he makes sure to stay just far enough behind them he wouldn't appear to be a threat to them. One of the kids looks familiar. Timur Willington's family lives just a few doors down from Sebastian's mom. When the group splits up to head their individual ways, Sebastian follows Timur. Timur was a good choice. He is definitely headed home. Sebastian closes the distance a little because the quarters get narrower and twist more often, and he doesn't want to lose sight of his guide. Timur is only a few yards from his house when he ducks through a curtain. Sebastian hears a yelp and dashes forward to give what assistance he could. A bulky man holds Timur by the collar and is rifling through the boy's pockets, looking for anything of value. Sebastian figures it is food he's hoping to find. Jagger, you still playing at this racket? Sebastian is surprised at how steady his voice is. I thought by now you would have grown up and gotten a real job. Jagger sneers at Sebastian and pushes Timur away. Well, well, what do we have here? Jagger is a couple of years older, a couple inches taller, and at least 30 pounds of muscle heavier than Sebastian. He stands with his hands on his hip in what earlier generations would think of as a classic Superman pose. Well, you're back. If I figure right, you just graduated and now come back home. You'll see that fancy education won't do you any good on the JD. You're still the spineless runt you always were. You might as well get a job so we can mug you regularly. In fact, you always come back with some sort of goodies. Hand it over now. Jagger, don't you get it? You don't want me here, and you don't want to cross me if I do decide to stay. With what I learned, I could take over your gang. Sebastian scans the exposed dark coppery skin, looking for tattoos. It's the Vega, right? I believe that's their skunk on your right arm. It ain't no skunk, it's a wolverine. Jagger advances menacingly, and Sebastian holds his ground. Jagger puts a hand on each of Sebastian's shoulders and squeezes until the smaller man winces. Jagger breaks into a big grin and gives him a hug, causing Sebastian to wince again. Well met, little brother. Smiling, Sebastian claps him on the back. Have you been taking good care of Mom? Of course, he says with scorn in his voice. That's why I became part of the Vega. They won't mess with the mother of one of their best enforcers. Is it really that bad? Yeah, bro. It used to be they would respect the elders and work with them, you know? Then Callisto's crew started getting bigger and more gangs started listening to his bull. So the gangs are starting to blame the elders for this situation? You and they know there's a simple way out of this mess. Bro, don't even start with that RUS crap. Why? Because that's not what the gangs really want. Callisto is blaming the elders to cut out the middlemen and put the gang in charge. He wants a bigger share of the dole. It isn't about resolving the issue, it's about gaining control and power. Sabo, don't say that so loudly. Why? Is the big bad enforcer scared? Faster than he can think, Sabo gets slammed against a bulkhead. Pinned, he stares up into Jagger's flushed face, flared nostrils, and dilated pupils. Yeah, bro, I'm scared. I'm scared the gangs are going to take over. I'm scared I'm going to have to make choices I'm not proud of to keep Mom safe. I'm scared I won't be enough to protect her. And I'm scared when the gangs scrap me, there will be nobody here to protect her. With a final push, he slams Sebastian against the bulkhead again, then turns away. Sebastian straightens his shirt and steps up beside his brother. Together they start toward the house again. By the way, I wouldn't diss the Vega too loudly in this neighborhood. They have ears and eyes everywhere. After a few steps, Jagger states, I hear they found you in a janitor's closet. Yeah, can we pretend you never heard that and never talk about it? After a few more paces, Jagger adds, a skunk would have been an insult, right? There's some kind of old earth rodent? Yeah, bro. I'll tell you more about them later. Right now, I want to check on Mom. Well, thank you for listening to Chapter 5 of The Problem with Aether. Next time, Sebastian's return home becomes far more complicated than he expected. Long, simmering tensions aboard the Jefferson Davis continue to rise, old loyalties are tested, and the fragile balance that has kept the ship functioning begins to crack. Meanwhile, hidden enemies move their plans forward, and a routine visit home places Sebastian closer to danger than ever before. As events begin spiraling beyond anyone's control, one thing becomes increasingly clear. The Jefferson Davis is approaching a breaking point. I hope you'll join me for Chapter 6.